may be slightly off topic, but if you're willing to hear it, I have a story about someone who pretty much ruined their life because of stupid shit they did in the name of being a furry. Alright, this took place in high school, so it may take a bit of time for me to recollect and type everything up. This is also my first time green texting. So here's the first part. When I met North, not his real name, and I don't remember if it was his persona name, but both were equally stupid. Be in sophomore year of high school. Friends know I'm a furry and are remarkably cool with it. Other people are cool with it too, since I've treated it like being a fan of the Thundercats and shows like that. No furry paraphernalia either. Halfway through first semester, new kid comes to school. Super rich family moved to get richer because less property tax and cheaper cost of living. Hear about new kid, think nothing of it. Suddenly getting made fun of for being a furry. Whatevs.mp3. Escalates over the next few weeks and starting to wonder what the fuck happened. After a month, Pasty McLardass seeks me out and introduces himself by his furry name, North. Just nod him off and go back to doing my own thing with my friends. Eventually, he leaves. Kel, a guy who loves orange soda and fried chicken, the whitest guy you've ever seen, a friend of mine, tells me about him after North soon bumbles off. Apparently, when he mentioned he was a furry to play off some shitty sympathy card, people got curious and were actually interested since I did show some people some badass stuff like werewolves and shit. Apparently pulled out Neko ears and a foxtail from his bag, put them on, and started using shitty furry slang. God fucking damn it. So that was my first encounter, and surely not the last with North, as he becomes a much bigger problem later on. Sorry for the delay, still remembering shit, but this is the second encounter. Euphemus the ultimate. Now, as for one reason I made furry stuff cool with my friends, I made a sort of homebrew D&D where it pretty much is the new Thundercats, except Mumra didn't exist and humanity was what created the human-animal hybrids during a huge-ass war, before killing each other off or escaping in dimensional pockets outside of time. Russian dinosaur cloning, fuck yeah. We held the campaign during lunch, study hall, clever schedule manipulation at the start of the year, allowed everyone to be together for it. And on Fridays, at my place. This is how North became a tumor to us. Lunch period on a snowy day, cramped inside because, fuck, it's getting cold out. In class next to a library, approving new character sheets with my closest friends for a continuation of a campaign that takes place 100 years after Spell Plague. How magic worked was that it came suddenly, as a mutation over time. 3 different types of magic, with wizardry, battle magic, and mana magic. Best friend, Panda Man, dude loves pandas and said if he were ever a furry he'd be one. Had rolled up a warrior turned battle mage because of the sudden influx of magic. Going over finer details when in comes North. We made good progress on avoiding the guy as he'd become more and more toxic, though info as to why was like getting cloak and dagger on getting information. Nothing reliable, but nothing to not believe.
Oh, hey guys, can I play?
We kind of have a full part. He slaps his shit on the table and pulls out a binder of shitty drawings, drawn in half anime, half potato style. Points to a shitty drawing of a blue and white wolf with a rainbow tail.
I want to be my persona.
I visibly cringed. I remember that clearly.
North.
Frown as I look it over and shake my head. Can't. He just doesn't fit in. Blue fur like that wouldn't be natural, especially that rainbow tail. There's no evolutionary... Got cut off by a rant of how there's magic in this game, and he can do whatever the butt-fuck he wants. Not wanting to deal with it, I sigh and make up some bullshit on how he dyed his fur, but gave him a permanent penalty on any stealth checks because it's fucking bright blue fur and a fucking rainbow. He then goes on to make what noobs do. An ultimate warrior who can do anything and the edgy lone wolf persona, akin to the coupling of a razor blade factory and an angled ruler. Nothing strong since he had points everywhere, so he was bound to fail at everything he did. Can't sneak for shit. can't intimidate, can't fight, can't do anything because of his dumbassness. Approve it because I like taking the piss out of newbies. All takes about half an hour and we're starting off the game. Party of a battle mage panda, Panda Man, forgot his name, a roguish fox, Maxon, and a wizardry owl, Moonin. Luchador Chupacabra, aptly named Libos, and a kobold artificer, Spike. The names also reflect the players, as they will be regulars in this story. The party was leaving, but since North was doing his fucking lone wolf shtick, he was left behind.
I follow the party at a distance.
Fucking alright, .jpg. The first battle is on shortly after, and the party sees North in the distance because it's fucking obvious, and they think he's having them do all the work so that he can come in and reap the XP at the end. Ain't having that shit. While North was watching for whatever RP drama he was about to do, a rat highwayman had already snuck up on him and was poised to backstab him.
No, I'm stealth right now.
Roll. Rolls proceed. He got a 10. Normally I would let that pass, but -10 is also the modifier against him for blue fucking fur. The rat sees you and is very confused as to why there would be blue on brown/gray ground. And why was this wolf trying so hard to hide? The party has just finished up with their encounter and turned their attention to watch Wonder Dog in action. North lasted surprisingly long. He managed a saving throw that only took out half his health. What hope there was short-lived, and he ended up dying before he could make a worthwhile scratch on the beginner enemy rat. Suddenly, speccing into dual wielding for every weapon without any proficiency in the weapon is a bad idea. The party wastes one of the few and very, very valuable res gems I gave them at the start of the game because of how much they pity him. End of that campaign as the bell to return to class sounded while North was fuming. He would still return, but this is just the beginning. Now that we have the general stuff down, let's get to know North a bit better. North is possibly what Bobby Hill would be if he was like King of the Hill Season 4's Bobby, except with furries, long black hair, and whatnot. Worst part is, the dude never showered. It was like he was the embodiment of every negative furry stereotype. We'd give him a real hard time about this, but he'd just laugh it off and think we were joking. He'd always wear his tail at any given opportunity, and that thing was just as gross and smelly looking. Just a sick, dirty rainbow tail. He'd wear the ears too, but he got in trouble more than enough times, as it was seen as a hat, and thank goodness for that. It also helped that one of us found it and misplaced it in a dumpster. Just a tidbit before we get back to the main story. Now, after the first embarrassing defeat, I gave North the opportunity to redo his character sheet before we started again. The rest of the party agreed to this because we all thought that it was really funny seeing him miserably fail. We did not tell him that to his face, of course. Friday, during study hall of the same day, pretty much how North found out about our game, he did his work on the new character sheet while we played our DSs and TCGs. North looks fucking proud at the end of class and hands me the revised character sheet. Almost the fucking same. Fuck my life, Luigi. Only difference was a huge-ass description in the bio about generic shit of how he was an orphan and other lone wolfy bullshit. Had the opportunity of fine-tuning a great character with all my notes and books, as well as a notebook full of lore I had on the in-game world. Almost all untouched. Now dual-wielding spec and swords, a step up, but still not spec'd for swords in basic. Still the Mary Sue of warrior who can do anything but still can't. Still blue fucking fur. No armor specialization. Fuck it. Right on the notepad attached to my screen to watch him for Mary Sue shenanigans and appropriately punish. Now we change scenes from school to the card shop. This place was essentially the hive for teens and adults for TCG as well as gaming. Not only was it a comic shop, there were 2 back rooms devoted for tabletop gaming, and another for video gaming with time rented out for $5 an hour. So we get to the card shop and set up shop. Picking up from the campaign. Spike, the party leader, only out of terror he pulled from others through his mechanical magicry and attitude towards anything that would slow his grand plans, had demanded the reason why North had jeopardized almost everything and wasted a very valuable resource.
The memories.
What? Why?
I remembered that rat from when he raided my village and killed my parents.
Nigga, that rat was younger than you. Deciding I had enough and did not want something so painfully uninteresting to derail the game, I pulled out a character sheet I had been saving for when I wanted to play. It was one thing that would take the ever-loving piss out of North's character and make things entertaining at the same time. This character was a love project of mine, a demon/dragon battle bard. After making a terrible mistake in a summoning, the demon fused with him and became a musical demon akin to Tenacious D. Black armor lined with slow fading red to black trim just for the edgy touch, and named Eusebio. He would not take part in any combat, but he'd really give North a hard time. The ground shakes and flames erupt from a few meters of where the party is camped. A long guitar riff echoes and Eusebio appears out of the ashes. The party readies up for battle, but before it can get started, he starts singing. I can't remember how the song went, but it was about how he was joining the party to become known as the greatest musician. In the midpoint, he went on a chorus about how that rat that killed North was only 10 years old. Loved guitar class as an elective, so this only gave me practice. From what I remember in the lyrics, it went sort of like, "The rat boy was only 10, the rat boy was only 10, the rat boy was only 10. My friends were laughing their asses off. By the time the song ended, North was visibly angry, but did nothing to refute, so the campaign continued. I had an insert now to control his shenanigans in-game, and a possible healer with the right songs, so things went according to plan. Battles happened, treasure was found. The new battle bard sung about how the party was doing. North decided he had enough of being the butt of the joke, so he had the idea of getting himself to lead the party. At least that's what his actions were hinting at. But closing time was coming to the store, so it had to be held for the Saturday session. Before the party would be split up, we usually arranged a house to meet up at so that we could continue the game over the weekend, and who would be in charge of what snacks, as these sessions would sometimes take from 10 in the morning to 3 in the morning, breaks in between. So we're going over the details before long. North makes his move. So this chapter will be titled Beast's Castle. In the beginning of the preparation stages, when I ask whose house we'll be holding this session at, Libos was saying earlier in the week of how cool it would be to have it at his place again. His mom made amazing churros, by the way. And how a recent yard sale made a ton of room in the basement, so it would go uninterrupted.
We can have it at my place,
said North. Just as we were about to arrange who brought chips, soda, etc., and host who was in charge of meals.
Oh yeah, I'll cover everything.
Now, we love it when we don't have to bring everything. Sometimes we'd have a surplus, and it could carry over to the next week. But someone supplying everything is unheard of, and we were not about to refuse it. Alright, but we'll need your address. After he wrote it down in his sloppy-as-fuck handwriting, eyes widened to the fact that it was on the well-off side of town. gatedcommunities.fmv. So that night, I had spent in preparation fully on what will be happening next. No need to go out and get any food, so I had a good time coming up with fine-tuning certain parts of the campaign. The next day arrives, and everyone is at North's motherfucking mansion at noon. Place was huge by small-town standards, most places being ranches and whatnot. These guys opted for the big-ass house instead. Meet North's parents. The dad is a pretty chill dude, investment banker, and really good at it. Mom was stay-at-home mom, pretty cool too. We asked where North was holding the session, and his dad told us that it was in his room, and how he was happy that North even had friends. Needless to say, this was going to be our first and last session here. As mentioned before, North smelled like he never took a shower. The room smelled fucking awful. It was a big room, but awful. Reeked of belly seed, BO, and I nearly vomited in my mouth. Furry art on the walls. Nude furry art. What looked like a body pillow in the corner of the room. My friends and I cringed at it all, but we took a deep, gagging breath, opened a window despite being cold outside, and got to work. Libos. Hey, where'd you set up the snack table?
What snack table?
Maxon. You said you'd be in charge of snacks, dude.
Oh, I forgot.
Libos and Maxon were pretty shaken at this, but Spike pulled them aside and told them how they might be better off because of the smell in the room. They both agreed to that sentiment, as I was told after the early-ended session. I still wasn't too happy about any of this. We tried to play through the awful smell for about 2.5 hours before I called the session to an end, making up an excuse for all of us to leave. We usually stayed the night during these sessions, but this was our exception. As we left, Dad gave us a knowing nod and a sigh, before he continued doing whatever he was doing. Really good guy. I kept in touch with him and he gave me a great letter of recommendation, actually. As we were leaving, still some daylight out, we all made an agreement that next week we'd start holding early votes on who hosted and who brought what. Fast forwarding a few weeks in time, North managed to get himself killed again and near death the second time. He tries wooing anyone he meets now, but thanks to abysmal charisma and no opportunities to ever level because he's so unbalanced in a bad way, he gets chased out of towns by lynch mobs or beaten up in worse cases. This also marks the time of Kel entering into the fray. Kel was curious what we were doing for some time, but he never bothered joining until I invited him. It was a bit harder since he could not join in the study hall sessions. It was a problem soon solved. After I handed him the lore book and he dove right in. He rolled up a bull paladin to the god of warrior's justice, who would go off for several hours a day in meditation and prayer to his god. He was also nudged into the party on recognition of Panda Man as being an old partner when they were mercenaries. This also meant the party had someone who could res, allowing North to get more careless in his actions and end up in more hilarious deaths. On to Kel the Conqueror, Kel's first session, and since he did his homework, he had my approval for his character, as well as a bonus bag of silver for his good work and starting equipment. He soon had a set of bright, shining plate mail, as a big-ass cow should. But one thing that caught my eye was his weapon of choice. No sword or shield, no mace, no hammer. He chose steel cestices. When I asked him about it, he just told me, so everyone could feel the fist of justice. Libos and Kel's characters got off a lot more chummy than Panda Man, surprisingly. But more off, Kel really hated North's character. Kel, being a surprisingly amazing role player, he explained that his character sensed a great evil in North, only constantly reminded of it by Eusebio's verses about North's current deeds. Kel saw the selfishness and especially the vanity that his god hated so much. So, working with Spike behind the scenes, as well as Libos, they worked on a plan together on how to make North the punching bag of the party. North, doing his lone wolf shit in town, was not aware of this. I keep players separate and speaking in lower voices if they're apart, helps with metagaming. And had been swindled of a good share of his cash by a merchant I frequently had meet up with the party in the wilds. He wasted all his cash on an ancient sword that not only could he not properly wield, like all weapons, but broke as he sheathed it. So the party heads into town before the first real dungeon. Selling his starter weapons for coin he was swindled out of, North went to a weapon shop that I had intentionally stocked for higher-ranked stuff like they were about to face. North, however, was not intending on paying for anything. Soon his lone wolfiness caught up to him, and he had a mob of mercenaries hired by the shop owner on him due to a terrible stealth roll. Rolling a 1, he also had the -10 stealth modifier on him. Not only did the shopkeeper see him take a sword and shove it in his pants, the pants were cut in half, and he had tripped, knocked over half the stock, and damaged almost all of the weapons in the process. Running towards the party with a mob behind him, he started shouting for help. Kel took this as a quest for warrior justice and did a straight uppercut onto the fucking blue-furred wolf and sent him high into the air. Kel then grabbed Libos by the forearm and launched the luchador into the air for a flying El Chupacabra signature kick with such power, Libos' legs were almost broken. North, however, was sent far over the crowd and over the makeshift wall of the village, already dead. This, however, showed what Spike and Kel's plan was, and North was pissed. They unceremoniously dragged North's body far away from the town after getting their needed supplies. Spike then placed a stone on North's body, and he was revived. Kel had explained to me that through his pleading with the god of warrior justice, he argued that being able to imbue his magic into stone would not only be useful for him, but it would also aid him should he fall before his justice was done. It also served as a way he could revive someone clearly not in his god's favor and not fall out of his god's favor. I commend him for that. After hearing the news of the ability to revive by proxy, Spike made a series of intricate stones that could be easily enchanted thanks to being an artificer. But the tag team attack by Kel and Libos was the real gem of the situation. They managed to tell the town that they had been hunting down the evil blue wolf. Libos piped in a Mexican soap opera-esque story on how North had killed his mother and raped his father, so he took up the mask to seek justice in the name of Lucha. I loved it all and called the session there for that day, but North was really fuming at this point. Now, at the end of the month, we like to take breaks to keep things fresh, so the last week of the month is always our Bro-Down Day. The subject came up on how we could take our group to a better environment. Sure, notebooks and miniatures are fun, but how awesome would it be to have more of an interaction through a virtual environment? That's when North had an idea in this chapter. Screw clever titles, how we griefed a Star Fox sim. Spike had just got done explaining how awesome it would be if there was a D&D-like MMO that would match people up for a custom-built campaign before North got in.
Second Life.
Nigga what?
We could use Second Life. I'm pretty popular in there.
Truth be told, I did consider using Second Life in the past to hold proxy games, but to buy, let alone rent, a sim? No friggin' way that'd work on a high school budget. After everyone looked at me while North began digging through his bag for God knows what, I shook my head slowly and they gave that, I get it, look. Soon North had his handy-dandy shitty drawing book out and thumbed to an obviously traced Fox McCloud picture, telling us that that's what he looked like and we should join him where he plays Star Fox. I agreed on everyone's behalf, to their shock. After study hall was over, we made sure we'd tell Kel about what happened, and I told him we'd be taking the piss out of North in this. After class was over and I went back home, I did my homework on Second Life and how easy it would be to grieve. Now, this was the time before Second Life had its fancy no-push function, or even the force time option. We all downloaded Second Life and messaged each other our usernames, then searched up North's name and added him. He soon teleports us, and good God was this a cringy sight. Again, this was a time before great-looking avatars and everything was just a jumble of prims. No sculpts or meshes. North, in an early Blue Fox Luskwood avatar, proceeded to flaunt his superiority over us noobs. But he did not know I had formed a group with my starting $250, and we were plotting on how to ruin everything for North. We did get a proper welcome by some furries in the sim, and even starter avatars/kits. We told them how we were just placating North for now, and that we were planning on raining on his parade. We got an IM from one of them saying he was in, and the other two jumped in. Turns out North was a real douche to everyone there, and he was not banned because he was not technically breaking any rules. It also helped that North had a pocket mod he was using as a fuck toy. Not interested in type fucking or anything, and my friends were already groaning at the sexual acts that seemed to be happening with North a few paces away, our plan began. We were going to lag bomb the sim. Now back in those days, Second Life was super easy to grief. Hell, most of the freebie places had the perfect stuff from cagers to orbiters, anything you may need. The prize we were after was a script that would drive up the sim's lag to ridiculous levels, and one of our conspirators had the script we needed. Now, how this had to be done was the guy had to go to a sandbox and add the item to a box without notice, because the script was meant to detonate on drop. One guy using the script would only make super uncomfortable leg. Maxon had surprisingly come up with a plan. Using her charms, Maxon had procured a sum of dollars to get a better-looking avatar. Horny furries are easily manipulated. Soon she had officer status in the group for the sim and had invited us in as members with build rights. We soon got into position, one in the center of the sim and everyone else in the corner, and at noon things were about to get crunchy. We had arranged it so that North would be right next to Maxon in the center of the sim, in plain sight of everyone. North was doing his usual and keeping uncomfortably close to Maxon. At the time, all the stars aligned. Maxon dropped the wooden block containing the script and made it look like the res line came from North's hand. It's after this entire event that Spike linked this song, as he saw it perfectly fitting. I typed in the link. It's actually a link to a Cowboy Bebop OST. Everything slowed to a crawl. Avatars being pushed back to a nuke level, only to be knocked back in all directions, then soon upwards in a singularity. We had no idea this would happen, and remembering with that music only made it more fitting. The sim crashed, and hard. We had to restart our clients, and we were on a welcome island. A success. The group exploded with chat about who griefed, and if anyone had any information, to come forward. Maxon took advantage of this chaos and her influence by messaging the admin, saying she saw North do it. North was soon banned without reason. Immediately, he messages me saying he was banned. I, like everyone else, including our co-conspirators, tell him the group had been taken over and was banning everyone. All bases were covered, and we laughed so much about it. We all left Second Life. I eventually came back, but on a new account, and Maxon is still out there to this day, though don't remember her username. The campaign continues in the next chapter. Now, some of you guys may remember a guy named Moonin. He played a wizardry owl. He did not have much of an opportunity to do anything aside from participating in a fight, because North's antics usually forced a party to leave town too early. Moonin's family was also getting ready to move across the country. His dad got a better job. So, a tearful goodbye to a good friend of mine. Moonin's last stand. It was the final week before Moonin had to go. About a week after the lag bomb. Moonin had prepared his character so that the owl would be residing in the City of Knowledge. After the dungeon the party had prepared for, North got his ass handed to him by a paladin lucha libre tag team action. Moonin's bones were just getting too old, and his adventuring days were coming to an end. He would retire and spend the rest of his years learning the ancient history and their meaning for existence. North, however, was not happy that someone was the center of attention and not him. As they were going through the cave entrance to the underground ruins of a city, North was a bit further behind than usual. I mentioned that the ruins had a disturbing sense of order, with tall, squarish buildings, gridwork of roadways, and odd signs hanging over them. Flickering, snowy noise boxes occasionally turning on as they passed by them. Before they knew what was going on, the party were surrounded by metal guardians, robots. Spike, being a kobold artificer, had a knack for mechanics and ingenuity. He had already devised a plan that would get them through the situation safely. The guardians would halt aggression if they saw a strange thin tablet that almost every artificer bought from excavators for this reason. North, who had not read a single word of the lore, decided he'd charge in and attack with his words. Save everyone. By saving everyone, North threw a borrowed sword at one of the machines and actually destroyed it. Who knew? By hitting a natural 20. Hagrid should not have done that. AVI. The Guardians erupted into action, charging their sentinel lights and their punishing rays, laser guns. Kel picked up and threw North over the heads of the monsters, while Libos leapt up and body surfed the goddamn blue fur wolf along the side of a building. Yet another death for North. Maxon had just simply leapt and planted a glue bomb on one of the robots as she passed over the heads of the Guardians, clearing an explosive path for Eusebio, Pandaman, and Munin. I had Eusebio play a quick haste song, which I sang to the tune of Pac-Man. Soon the party had reached the end of the dungeon, running past the boss and into the treasure room full of artifacts which were hastily collected. The only way out was a hole in the ceiling to a cave network above which led to one of the mines used by the City of Knowledge for their excavation. Getting North's corpse up the hole wasn't so hard, but Kel was failing his climb rolls. It was then did Munin stop his plans for retirement altogether and move to the entrance of the room. He erected a magical barrier that drew on his life force. He told all of the party to go leave without him, to be safe on their journey, and to not forget their goal. Pandaman took one last look at Munin, and Munin looked back with a tear in his big owl eyes before being vaporized. As I mentioned, I keep my party members separated if they're apart, death being part of the separation. I did just that with North. While I had Eusebio writing a power ballad on the sacrifice of Munin, Spike had dropped a particularly heavy redstone on top of North's corpse. North, back in the game, did his usual edgy lone wolf shtick and said,
Ha! Guess the old geezer didn't have what it takes to survive.
Says the guy who dies all the time. Wave. Because North did not hear of how Munin truly died, the party looked at him in shock and disgust. I added a verse to Eusebio's lines that the death was blamed for a clown wolf's attacks. Flew right over his head. Oh well. After the game, we all said our final goodbyes to Munin, though we made sure not to tell North was not joining us. What does that even mean? I gave him my lucky dice and bag, and a painstakingly rewritten copy of all of his character's journeys, and that was the last of Munin. Brandon, you were the best player a DM could ask for. This marks the final part of North's involvement with our campaign, and after this the follow-up of what happened to him afterwards, and why I am not willing to give out too much of his personal info. Until then, the fall of the clown. It was Friday, and we had planned to meet up in Lebos's basement for the continuation of our lunch session. However, we took note that North had not arrived at the time that he usually does, a half hour late actually. We had to wait on him since he was in the party, and he was in school today, but we were about to start when North said,
Hey guys, sorry I took so long.
Kel said, Dude, we've been waiting forever, what took you? North had a smug look on his face.
Oh, I was in the office. I'm dropping out.
First nail in the coffin. You, what? North says,
Yeah, I decided I want to focus more on being a furry.
We were all shell-shocked at this point. Pandaman was pretty much a furry now, but this was something that would make him question it entirely. Kel broke the silence by laughing. Good one, dude. Seriously, what took you? North looked angry, and then it all sank in. And soon we would realize that North had more on the ball for us than telling us he was going to drop out. At this point, we were pretty much at a major dungeon. I paced it sort of like a movie. After the funeral ceremony and the commissioning for a statue to be added to the Hall of Legends of Munin, something all of the party members threw all of their coin in for, as well as exchanged for what artifacts they found, except for one. The game picked back up at the card shop. Everyone was about 4 levels higher than when they started. I am a benevolent god. Except North. He had died in every fight, every scenario. He took XP penalties for acting out of his alignment, neutral good, and more. His body was not ready. He was hiding in the back of the group the entire time, waiting, not getting into fights. I chalked it up to the lone wolf thing again, but when he did not participate in the boss fight, I was suspicious. As the final blow was about to be struck on the boss, he made his move by jumping on its back and stabbing it. It was only a minor wound, since he barely had anything specced into stealth. Kel did something akin to a falcon punch, except channeling all of the energy of his holy god into his fist, the fist of justice, and obliterated the boss. North, though, thought he scored the final blow and was already taking what he wanted from the loot, which was everything. Maxon, though, playing fully into the role, was already raging at this. You don't take a rogue's gold. North then began his tirade about how he was the one who struck the final hit, about how it was his kill even though he did nothing the entire delve. North then continued on about how he was the party leader now. Spike was additionally pissed, and that they all had to do what he says, despite him never participating in the planning for the raid. It was at this point Libos had acted very out of character. During this speech, Libos snuck up behind North and drew out a bag, only to drop it over North's head. Panda Man, picking up what was going on, had prepared a snare spell to keep his feet stuck. Maxim struck at North's pressure points for a prolonged and painful stun. This all led to Kel going in for a gut punch that would knock North out, not kill. It was then that Spike drew out a net and finished up by tying North up. To finish it all, Panda Man took out a spear of planar travel that Munin had given him, just in case, and opened a door to the Plane of Torment. It's actually one of the human-made pocket dimension experiments that caught fire, believed to be full of nothing but evil and demons. Tying North to a stake and pulling the bag free, Spike took up the leader role again and said, as much to North in character as out, "Listen, we're tired of you. Ever since you came into our party, you've been nothing but trouble. We're leaving you where you belong, not for our sake, but for the memory of Munin. Enjoy what you earned." And soon Panda Man closed the portal to a screaming and soon burned alive blue-furred wolf with a rainbow tail. At this point, North snapped. North grabbed the edges of the table and flipped it over and started screaming at everyone. It was nonsense, gibberish, and everything before he burst into tears. The shop owner came over to see what was going on, and we tried explaining the situation. North, I guess to take out revenge for allowing this to happen, ran up to him and threw a punch. Since he was fat and telegraphing so much, it took no trouble to just sidestep out of his way. He hit the store owner square in the mouth. North was soon banned from the store after that. He dropped out of school and got banned from one of the only places to hang out in the same day. And soon after, it was all over school. I'll be covering what else happened in the epilogue. Epilogue. The news of North's dropping out shocked his parents more than us. He had apparently forged their signatures to do so, but they decided not to go against it. North's mom did have another kid sometime later, and a daughter at that. A few years later, he did show up on Steam with a friend request. His profile was decorated in that furry tripe from Unicodes, to MLP references that made me gag. As for the reason why I can't refer much to him, after the incident he had become pretty much a stalker. He followed us home, everything. It got to the point where we had to get a restraining order on him, much to the added embarrassment to his family. I apologized so much to his dad for having to do this, but he was cool about it. Even kept in contact with me and gave me a glowing letter of recommendation for college. But North's shenanigans did not end there. From what I read in the newspaper about him, he had become a serial dog rapist. That term will always be glued in my head. His family promptly disowned him after that. As to how he managed to send me a Steam friend invite, I'm not sure. His extended family probably took pity on him and let him stay with them. As for now, I don't know what happened to North. Munin had completely fallen off the grid with us, and I hope wherever he is, he's doing great. Maxim, I know, continues to play Second Life, but after high school we lost touch, and I hope to find her again on there sometime just to catch up. Spike and I are still great buddies, though we get our hangout time on Second Life since we're so far apart. We figured out how the game works now, and we share a bit of land with one of the furries we met during the lag bomb. Kel even joined up with us on Second Life, and he's still rocking the bull paladin look. And that's the story of North. Sometime later, the original author posted again. Anyways, hello everyone, it's been a long time, hasn't it? Well, anyway, I was visiting my hometown and met up with the old crew. We had a lot of catching up to do. One of the things we caught up on was North, and I had shown them the screenshots you guys took a while back, and they were laughing that people actually did that, and I wanted to add some more to it. The reason why I've been holding off on the North Horses Around story is due to a mental block I had on the whole thing altogether. Like, for starters, I didn't think it was even real. But when we chatted over it, the block started to slip away. At first, someone mentioned that around the time they had a really strange nightmare. Then Muneen, yes, even he came back. We sort of had a reunion, but not a class reunion. You see, the reason we don't hear from North anymore is that he is sort of died. His parents, even though they disowned him, still held a funeral, and we were the only ones who had shown up. We got word from his parents, who got their information from his aunt on his mother's side, the only family member who took him in and dealt with his shit. Anyways, he had only been making friends with people online, furry friends, and had never voice chatted with them. A couple of us speculated that it would have ruined his fantasy if he heard their real voices. Suddenly, Veronica, the sexy squirrel, actually being played by a dude is a bad idea, but I digress. These friends had been siphoning his welfare money from him through commissions and Second Life Linden for a good while, so when his aunt signed onto his computer, which he apparently never turned off or even put a password on, they gave fake sympathy and said they'd go if they could afford it. So we were the only ones there, because the level of fur faggotry he was at afforded no real friends. Anyway, how did he die? Well, remember how I mentioned that he was arrested for being a serial dog rapist? Well, there was a bit more to it than that. He did get out on bail, but he didn't actually give up his ways, and only half-assed his court-ordered therapy, and ended up growing worse and worse. Eventually, he bit off more than he could chew. The fucker actually snuck into a wolf sanctuary and tried fucking one. I'm trying to find the article it's on, but it's being buried by all of these articles about wolf dog mauling a man that isn't North. Dig deep and I think you'll find it. The worst part is that they didn't find his body for about 2 weeks, since it was pretty much torn apart and scattered all over the park. The only reason why we know he was fucking with them is because we can put 2 and 2 together. So, in the end, North became a loser early in his life, had the potential to change his ways, and ended up getting mauled by wolves and being completely torn apart. Needless to say, he was cremated. What was left of him that was found. Well, the end.